Okay, good morning. Welcome to an incredible first episode of this Move with Gratitude podcast with an amazing guest. We're here live, I suppose, at Ocado HQ in Trident House in Hatfield, Hertfordshire. And it's a great way to start the week, and it's a pleasure of ours to kick this off today with Stephen. Welcome, Stephen.
Hello, everyone.
Stephen, just a short bio to introduce you to those that don't know you yet. I know you're pretty new to the Ocado group, aren't you, in March?
Yeah, I am. Joined March this year. Yeah.
So just a short, Stephen joined Ocado group, as we just shared, as Chief Financial Officer and Executive Director in March 2021. Prior to joining, Stephen was the CFO at Rolls-Royce Holdings. During his career, Stephen has worked across various sections both in the UK and internationally, including senior roles at Daily Mail, General Trust, Dow Jones and News International. Stephen has a BA in Economics and Accounting from the University of Leeds and qualified as a Chartered Accountant at PwC. So, wow,
that's right.
Quite the CV. So, we're not here to talk about some of that stuff today, but that's why you're here, which is sounds incredible. We've had a bit of a journey to get here, but we're here today fundamentally to talk about gratitude and movement, because that is what Run Grateful is ultimately all about. And with the point in time that we are in November, with it being Men's Mental Health Month, we felt it was a nice thing to do to introduce that into our conversation today, and just kind of get a general feel about your experiences and opinions on certain things as well. So, it's first thing on Monday morning, so we're going to go deep quite quickly, I suppose, but we'll go where we need to go. So just a little bit of context around Run Grateful, because I know you wasn't here for the first challenge that we embarked on with the Ocado Group in February of this year. Sorry. So we ran a certain amount, a few thousand grateful miles across the world, and the invitation for the Ocado Group employees was that they contributed these miles, whether it be 1, 10 or 50, however many it was, every mile counted. And then for them to focus on something or someone they were grateful for before they went out on that walk or that run. And they shared their gratitude with us, and internally we shared it far and wide, and it was really uplifting and really encouraging for people to kind of engage in that way and get to know others in that way, really. And it worked really, really well. And throughout the month, we've done various workshops attached to gratitude and what it meant to them and how they could tune into it if it wasn't something they were familiar with. And attaching gratitude to movement is what Run Grateful is all about. If we're lucky enough to move in that way, we really encourage people to do so. So with that, let's kick the conversation off with running and gratitude and things of that nature. Is it something that you're familiar with? I hear you're a runner.
Yeah, I love running, and in fact, I've always run. Right early on, I remember my mum still tells me that when I was little, I basically ran everywhere. I never walked anywhere at all. So, in a sense, but literally, I did run everywhere. Ran to school, ran back home from school, all that sort of stuff. So, so I've always been a runner through school level. Probably less so at university because there's other distractions when you get to university. But I still run now. And it's a great form of exercise. You've got to be careful with your knees. For me, I've had meniscus on both knees done.
Okay.
But that's okay. That's a decent recovery. It's a relatively benign operation as well. But running's always been, a very key part of my life, and I still do it today.
So your relationship with running, is that always? But it sounds like it's been consistent. I know you said there was little points in time, maybe for injury or university or whatever. But has it always brought value to your life? Has it changed over the years with how you use running, for want of a better word? Has it always been about PBs for you at certain stages, and now it's about just getting in the outdoors? Do you love running in the outdoors? Do you run with others? Do you like running on your own? Kind of, how do you play around with that running?
I'd say if I broke it down, at school it was all about running was a natural part of teams that I was in. So, for example, I played football, right? So you're always running around a lot when you're playing football, and then in the summer season, I do athletics at the school I was at, and I ran 800 and 1500. So, and that was the time, my heroes were obviously Seb Coe, Steve Ovett, you went Steve Cram. That was a great era for British middle distance running as well. And so I ran a lot. And my rival at school was a guy called Andy Booker, and I could never beat him at the 1500, so that was always, I remember that vivid. So the running then was part of competitively within school. And then from university, that was probably a blip for all, and then once you get into work, I realized I was missing it. I was playing football on Sundays,
Okay.
but running was a good release from the strains of work and the tensions of work and all that sort of stuff as well. And I know that you're a runner, but I know that when I feel when I'm running, you think through a lot of problems in your head.
Yes.
And issues that you might have had the week before or the week ahead, and everything becomes a lot clearer and more sort of simple, and you solve a lot of stuff as you run. I do.
Yeah, same.
So by the time I finish running, I feel completely refreshed and ready for the day ahead, and it's a really good start to the day. So that's where it's been important for me in the work environment.
And talking about work, and you've mentioned off camera that you're a family man and you've got a son or sons or daughter.
Yeah,
I don't know
right,
exactly how many kids. How many kids have you
We've
got?
got 4 boys.
Oh wow, 4 boys.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so with that in mind, have you always found that running? We've spoken about that consistency of it, but with the family life and the work life, is it something that you've been really conscious of to kind of look after yourself, that you kind of continue with being active? Yeah.
Definitely, I'm very conscious of that. I'm very, because I do think, it works well for me because if you feel sort of fit and healthy, mentally you probably feel a bit, good about yourself as well. So do you know what I mean? It's sort of, I think it's pretty important to be conscious about it and know that sort of think to yourself, hang on, I'm putting on a bit too much weight here.
Yeah.
And I need to sort of be a bit, or I'm drinking too much. It's easy, in the corporate world, it's very easy to get invited to a lot of business dinners, a lot of functions and so on. Maybe you're going out with friends as well. And it can be pretty sociable across that, either whether
That's
it be
one way of putting it.
Yeah, friends and family, but also from a business perspective as well. And you're just being careful. Being careful around drinking behaviours and patterns and whatever as well. Certainly during the first part of COVID, I think it went in this very similar phase for lots of people. The first 6 months or so, you're probably eating and drinking more than you did previously, and then you go on a health kick, and that was the kind of phases that people went through. But I am very conscious about it, about sort of weight, but also health. When you're fit and you're not, and all those sorts of things, and just sort of watch the food that you're eating. You don't need to go to any extremes, but just be sensible.
Yeah, self-awareness as well, isn't it, I
that's
suppose.
it really, yeah.
And like you said, and you've already kind of brought into the conversation around, the external factors that can kind of go on in the invitations, and maybe people that, whether it be friends or work colleagues or family, that are kind of in and around the place, and you try and learn from them and stuff like that as well, isn't it, with how you manage your own day-to-day.
Totally. The work environment these days has got, I started work in 1985. Now, no one had a mobile phone.
Yeah.
You used to no one had a laptop.
No.
You used to go home from work.
Filofax days.
Yeah, do you remember?
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah.
Faxes and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. You'd go home from work on a Friday night, and that was all that you didn't hear from work until you got back into work on Monday morning. That was it.
Yeah.
And also you go on holiday, and this was all through the 80s and a lot of the 90s. You go away on holiday, and you'd walk out of the office, and you'd literally go away on holiday, and that was it.
Yeah.
Not a care in the world. And it's a very different world these days. I think the sort of the digital connection, the always on, the fact that you'll get my emails and WhatsApps over the weekend or whatever, and on holiday. Often you might join 1 or 2 meetings. So I think, given that sort of changing work environment, it's more important than ever to make sure you've got a side of you that's thinking, is my health okay? Am I eating properly? Am I exercising properly? Am I not drinking too much? You've got to get all those things right as well to allow you to do the other stuff.
It's a lot to manage, eh?
Yeah, there really is a lot to manage. And that's where exercise, I think, comes, works for me, a release from that sort of work pressure and challenge that's always with you.
Yeah. And that's why running very early on, it got sold to me, running. It wasn't something that I can't identify with you in regards to the kind of the growing up with it and the school. And I played some sports, etc., but running was never a thing for me.
Yeah.
When I gave up smoking, actually, a good friend of mine suggested we both went on that journey together. And a way of doing that was to be accountable and do the fitness thing and the running thing. But I didn't really tune into it straight away. I wasn't on that frequency with it. I wasn't a fan straight away. But very quickly, it got positioned to me in such a way in which just changed my life forever, really, on reflection, where he just said, one day I feel like walking. Just kind of be consistent, be persistent with it, and you'll be okay. Yeah. And as soon as he presented it in that way, I just thought, like, that sounds attractive to me. That sounds like something worth sticking around for, And I had a young family at the time. I've got 2 daughters.
Oh, right. How old are they?
Now they're 14, 16. So this was like 10, 11 years ago.
Yeah.
But similar to how you've shared, is it just felt I wouldn't be missed. I could pop out for 20 minutes, half hour.
Well, that's the thing.
I had a lot of keen cycling friends, but it just felt like a faff, you know, like you need to go quite a long way and get all the kit.
I know, all that.
So running just from a lifestyle point of view, just slotted in and you could kind of use it as and when, and you felt like you could go out in the outdoors and tune into, as you mentioned, maybe whatever's going on for you on the day to day.
How many miles a week do you run? Would you say roughly?
On average, this year, about 15, 20. You know,
okay,
so,
that's pretty decent.
Yeah, and all really relaxed.
What's that, over 3 or 4 runs typically a week?
Yeah, 3, 4, 5, depending on what's going on and how I can fit it in. And my relationship with running has always been no pressure. So although I've got my maybe mini goals, which I think is important in life, just that's one side of my life where there's no expectation. If I can go out, brilliant. Do I time myself all the time? No. And that's where a lot of the, you know, gone into the fabric of Run Grateful. You know, that's kind of like, there's an opportunity there, and you've kind of alluded to it, where you can kind of be with yourself or be with others, whatever the scenario is, but you can really use that to focus on, you know, the good in your life and kind of just to get away from like the you know, the stresses and, you know, because life is stressful.
And also get outside into the countryside as well, and nature. Yeah. That's you know, all the research has shown that, like, you know, getting out into the outdoors and and a bit of sort of, you know, the trees and all that sort of stuff is a really good thing to do. Yeah, it's a very healthy thing to do. And so I'll always run first thing in the morning. I benefit from being an early riser. So I know this sounds really bonkers, but like in the summer, I'll be running at 5:30 or something.
Love it. Yeah.
Because it's a great time of the day. The sun's just coming up. It's really peaceful and it's really quite stunning actually. And sort of that's a really good. But that's but my sleeping patterns are really strange because I'm in bed often by sort of 9, 10 o'clock. So my colleagues that write to me late at night. That's the reason why I don't reply. Yeah. I'm fast asleep. And then, you know, I'll get up, but I get up early in the morning. Yeah. And I it's like that's in its own way. That's sort of like what I quite like about having that time at the start of the day when it's nice and peaceful and quiet and so on. And you can go for a run. Yeah. Getting stuck into a bit of work, and it's a good time of the day. Yeah, no, we're on the same page there, absolutely. So we'll go out for a 5:30 run one day. So you brought it up around you've been working for a long time. Yeah, I have, mid-80s. Yeah. You've spoken about how your relationship with running. Yeah. So over that time, you know, if we're talking mainly within the workplace now, what have been the changes that you've seen? You've spoken about the awareness around how we can look after ourselves, but you know, there's been a long time there in the corporate world as well. There's, you know, some would say some are still in the dark ages in their perceptions and judgments of certain conversations and certain things, especially when it comes to, you know, mental well-being or mental health and all these kind of words now that are being spoken about. You know, I say now, you know, it's been going on for a good period of time, you know, a good few years now, but you know, we're still transitioning into new ways of thinking and dealing with things, and you know, topics of, you know, how we can support everybody, knowing that everybody's different and coming from different places. Completely. And, you know, it's a complex one, but in your experience over the years, you know, what are the changes that you've seen and witnessed and been a part of? You know, it's right, and I'm glad you raised that, because I do have the benefit of being working 30 odd years, and you know, so with that benefit under your belt, you know, and I think it's worthwhile. We have evolved a lot as a country in our mindset on all those sorts of issues that you've just raised. And I won't go into sort of like, you know, specific examples, but, you know, our thinking now, our sort of, you know, our acceptance of all, you know, types of people, of ways of behaving and what's important. We've evolved enormously, I think, as a society, and we're going to carry on evolving as well. So sometimes, you know, one might say, well, we could be so much better, and I agree, and I think we'll get there, but we've come a long way over the last 20, 30 years, I think, as a country, and I think globally we have as well. Yeah. And that's that gratitude piece as well, and it's like glass half full, like your outlook, and we have come a long way, and for a lot of people from the outside looking in, and because we're so tuned in, because this is where we live, this is kind of where largely our attention is, we don't realise, but from people feeding back, like the UK in particular, like we are kind of, you know, years ahead in some instances in our points of view and our perceptions and how we handle things. Yeah. So, you know, it's not ever to get kind of caught up. Like you said, that's by no means justifying to stay still, because life is so
kind of, the momentum and the energy around life means that you kind of, tomorrow is already here, it's just that kind of constant kind of momentum of moving forwards and all that.
It really
so
is.
You've spoken about, you're obviously a successful man business-wise, and you've been to a lot of places and done a lot of things. But if you choose to engage in life and to kind of get up in the morning, whether it be 5:30, 10:30, whatever, and try, choose to participate and kind of just see what you can give and kind of the places you can go, etc. That comes with stress, and stressful places and expectations, I'd imagine on you and others, it doesn't matter where you are in the pecking order of organisations, whatever, there's all levels of stress. So do you feel like with your early experience of Ocado Group that, they are thought leaders, for want of a better word, because that's definitely my understanding of Ocado Group since working with them for the last 3 odd years, that they've been really proactive in, managing this growth, because they're, unbelievably kind of, huge in regards to like every day, every month, every year, like buildings are being built and this is happening, and, it's just incredible to kind of half witness. So the question is, what's your early impressions of Ocado and their kind of, thoughts on well-being and things of that nature?
Yeah, I think Ocado has a really refreshing culture. Actually, I think the value, we're all in it together. That really plays out. I mean, you see a lot of support. Actually, a surprising amount actually that I'm not used to. In other words, hierarchies don't really exist. Silo camp thinking doesn't exist. I think there is a real strong team spirit. There certainly isn't sort of a blame factor. It's okay to admit mistakes, and then get on with addressing them and solving them, which is a really healthy environment. And I think it's probably important that, having worked in a variety of different corporates, that we kind of recognise what a healthy environment Ocado is in that respect. And I think in its own way, it kind of needs to be, because we are a very still young, but very ambitious company, and with bags of potential. And we're still in the sort of the foothills of our journey here at Ricardo, and there's so much more to do. And there's a business we can become even greater than we are today. Now that brings in itself, all that ambition and potential, a lot of pressure on people and challenges to deliver that potential. We've got loads of good stuff out there, and it's delivering on the things that we're working on, and the projects and so on that we know will drive us to future success. We've got a whole bunch of relatively new retail partners around the world now, ensuring their success as well. So a lot of management, a lot of our people here in Ocado will have pressures on them to help with those goals. But that's where the culture comes in well, that we do give people the environment to be their best and support them along the way as well. At the same time, though, I think, if I'm talking around finance here specifically, I know that we don't have the tools today to do our jobs as well as we can do it. We don't have the systems in place or the processes in place. It's hard work being in finance today at Ocado, because we haven't invested in the space the way we've invested in our customer technology over the years, and quite rightly as well. Quite rightly, that should have been the focus. But now in finance, we know we've got a lot to do. We've started that journey in finance, but when I read the Peakon comments around what it's like working in finance in Ocado, and I'm sure this is true of other areas as well, we haven't made life easy for ourselves. Our data management is pretty poor. Our systems are not as great as they could be. And I think that's part of my job, to help sort of ensure there's investment in there to move us on, so that we're giving our people the best tools that we can, so they can work tolerably, hours in the workplace, and have enough time at home as well for that sort of work-life balance to kick in, which is crucial, of course, for mental health. So I think I and the team that I work with have a role to play in giving our people the platform and the tools and the data to do their jobs properly and efficiently. Which does have a ripple through to the mental health side of things.
Well, as you just shared that, I was just thinking about there's so many kind of overlaps or entwinements with what you just shared there, because fundamentally, whether it's from a business point of view or a personal point of view, it's self-awareness, isn't it? It's identifying things, not always problems, but identifying what needs to be done, and that's great. But that's when the action needs to be taken, because you can talk a good game, etc., etc. So you've identified there, as you've just brought up, certain things that need to happen, and it sounds like there's a real proactive, because that's something that I
There
don't
is,
think anyone
yeah.
could say Ocado Group isn't about, is that proactive nature about, some would say it's aggressive with how big, you said you're still relatively young, but
Yeah.
what's been achieved in a short
That's
amount of
staggering,
time, I mean, if that's a
staggering.
sign of things to come,
Exactly.
and it's the right people in the right places directing this and guiding this, and one of my questions that I kind of come here today, which I wanted to kind of ask, and in a roundabout way you've already kind of answered it, about leadership qualities, and what do you see as kind of leadership qualities rather in yourself? You've mentioned about how Ocado are looking to lead.
Yeah, I think leadership about setting a vision and a goal for an organisation. I think it's sort of ensuring you're supporting the organisation to deliver on that vision. Leadership by example as well, I think, is really important. I mean, as you kind of just said, words are just one thing. You've got to back words up with actions as well, and really show that you mean it. Otherwise, you can make great statements, but if there's nothing underneath them to support them, then that's no good either. Yeah. So you've got to back that up. It is really setting an ambitious goal, supporting and encouraging our teams to deliver on that goal, and giving the adequate resources to deliver on the objectives that we have. That's what I think leadership is all about, and sort of inspiring and motivating teams to be at their best as well, and making it an enjoyable place. I mean, leaders have a responsibility. Leadership is about responsibility, huge amount of responsibility, to do the right things for our people and for our organisation, for our shareholders. But it's also great fun, and you'll ask sort of, most leaders will say they wouldn't change a thing, because naturally it's something that you enjoy doing. It brings its challenges, but it's hugely rewarding as well, particularly when you get success, because we all love success.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And it's such a, I mean, a lot of conversations, doesn't matter what the topic is, but, life is complex, right? Like different people, like as we've just, as I brought up already, for anyone to be on the same page at any one time is tough, on a personal level, day to day might present, different challenges, depending on what circumstance you're in, and that kind of push and pull between wanting to kind of push and go out there, but then that brings a vulnerable state, and that brings a lot of emotion and thoughts and feelings that are kind of you need to manage and deal with. But like when that springs to mind for me, and that leadership is that vulnerability, because like you're putting yourself out there to kind of bringing ideas to life, and kind of technology and whatever that look like for Ocado Group, but and then you're out there to get judged. And just like you said, start, when do we go and how do we go, and just having that kind of courage. I suppose it takes a great deal of courage, doesn't it, to kind of get people behind that vision and say, listen, we're out here, we're not going to be perfect, it's not going to play out great every day, all day, and we've got to please a lot of people. But we're willing, and it's just, and I think you've got that willingness, as you've brought up a few times around.
Yeah, that's right.
Looking to see where we can improve, knowing that we're never really going to reach that final destination.
No, you never do. You're always setting goal after goal after goal, but that's what makes it fun. Just keep moving as well, and really, really important. No, I enjoy it, and but this is where sort of mental health though and is critical to ensure the delivery of those goals, and keeping an eye on it, and making sure that you've got an environment that allows people to express their feelings, and where they're feeling vulnerable. We all feel vulnerable now and again. And again, going back to your question around how things have changed. I mean, back in the 80s and 90s, mental health wasn't even a thing. It wasn't even talked about at all, and people that went off work, whatever the stress was like, crikey, well, that's a bit odd. So it was kind of a taboo subject, actually. It was almost something to be ashamed of. So we've evolved massively since then, and which is has to be a really healthy thing. And I think it's just accepting now that we do have tensions and stresses and whatever, and people react in different ways, and that we just have to help everyone through their own situation. And
from a work environment point of view, you think about like what's happened over the years with like women becoming more and more kind of a voice within the workplace, and when we're talking about, I mean, it's been accelerated quite dramatically over the last 18 months or so, but the kind of the work-life balance now is kind of a big conversation. And then you think about that 9 till 5, we spoke off camera about, the need once upon a time to wear the suit and the tie, and you always felt you were a bit risk-taking if you turned up to work one day without a tie on. So with that, bringing the men's kind of mental health into conversation in particular, because of the month that we're in, and there's a question that I don't often read off paper, but it's a delicate one, like I said, so I just want to kind of, I want to articulate it correctly, but what is the one piece of advice you have for men out there that are challenged, torn about opening up, facing, the things that are coming up for them, mainly within the workplace or outside of it. Like you said, the times have changed in regards to how it's kind of seen.
I would say to men out there, be open about how you're feeling. I mean, you don't need to do this, in a sort of a group or anything like that, but maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a colleague, maybe it's a member of your family, but be open about it. We all have tough times in our lives. Yeah. We really do. And it's important that we do open up and have a conversation, even if it's just with one person. It helps enormously if you do that, to say how you're feeling. And it's just, the work-life balance thing is, in my view, has deteriorated significantly over the last 20, 30 years. And it's just changed. It really has. And it was never as extreme as it is today, in my view. There was much more time for the outside of work stuff because of that connectivity. And I think it's crept up on us, and it's something that's sort of, very real, and we need to work to manage through and be disciplined about how we do it, whether it be you don't look at your emails over weekends or whatever works best for you. I think that's important, because otherwise you can get that balance go the wrong way. But I would say, my key message is to, and I've had friends of mine that have gone through really tough times. I lost a very good friend who took his own life several years ago, and when I look back, I wish I talked more with him and he talked more with me, and it's an important thing to do and not bottle it up. I know that's easier said than done, because often there's a sort of a shame thing around it or whatever, or people feel nervous about being open, but be open, and then look after yourselves as well on the health side of things. Look after yourselves, get a bit of exercise, even if it's a walk, and just sort of, I think that's an important, part of the ingredients to give you that sort of, resilience.
Absolutely.
And mental health. But, mental health is every bit as important, if not more so, than physical health. And keep an eye on it.
And that's the enshrinement with Run Grateful, that kind of relationship between movement and gratitude. Gratitude is kind of, wellness, I suppose, for your kind of mind, and just like these tools we can lean into, on a moment-to-moment basis, let alone a daily basis or a few times a week, or whatever your reality and how you introduce it. But, just moments in time where you can kind of check in and reset, and that kind of gratitude piece around, the runs and the walk that we invite people to do is very much about that. We've all got something to be grateful for. Some days you might feel like you're scraping the bottom of a barrel because the circumstances around you suggest that it's a bit on top, and it's a little bit kind of the anxiety is kind of there and kind of really raw. But if we can just lean into just something, and that anything, that it could just be that spark for just a different perspective on something, which all of a sudden gives you that encouragement and that energy to kind of just move forward. You've mentioned it in lots of different ways this morning about just that need to move forwards, but not just keep moving for the sake of it, but just that kind of, we're looking after ourselves. Yeah,
and have sort of like other passions as well. I mean, don't make work your thing. I mean, no one of us planned to do so, but have other passions. I mean, I love movies, for example. I'm working my way through the top 100 movies of all time right now.
Oh yeah, okay.
Like a Barry Norman book, which is really good actually.
Yeah.
So,
Barry Norman, I remember him.
Do you
used
remember
to be on the Breakfast Telly years ago.
Telly.
Talking about the movies.
Yeah, that's right. And he wrote a book a while ago that I've been meaning to, in the 90s actually, and the first 100 years of cinema, and I think I've got to number 71 now, so I've got just less than 30 or so.
I think lockdown kind of made you
watch
a few.
Yeah, exactly. I watched some crazy films as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay, listen, I'm aware of your time, and everyone's got a kind of beginning of another new working week, etc.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of things that I'd love to just kind of get an answer, a bit light-hearted. But while you're on obviously you're going to be taking part in the next Run Grateful challenge in January, which we're about to launch. So maybe you can dedicate a mile or two. Actually, before I finish on that, it's just something that's still on me, on my mind. And you mentioned we're talking about the men's mental health, but I suppose as well, you shared that sad story about a friend of yours a few years ago, but also, you've got 4 sons, so, with them, and how you kind of father them for want of a better word, but I can imagine you seeing it through their eyes, like the younger generation of how they're tuned into it, you know.
I have, yeah. I mean, we've got 4 boys who are 27, 24, 23 and 20.
Wow, okay.
And, you know, the 23-year-old has started work during COVID. And the 20-year-old started university during COVID as well. Now, their first years, they had negligible contact with their colleagues at university and at work, and they really struggle with that. And especially, young people are very sociable, and you should be sociable when you're young as well. And so they missed all of that as well. And I know they found it really tough. And I think, chatting with them, and they came home for a while, as I think a lot of children did, back to their mums and dads, and that was important to be there for them and make sure that that they feel that they're sort of like supported and people have got their back, so to speak.
Yeah.
That was so I noticed that. I mean, I've been lucky though. I have a great dad who played a brilliant role for me as that, and gave me a good example to try and live up to. And my wife and I think we, as parents, we try and do our best for our kids. It's the funniest thing. It's you worry about your children all the time.
Yes. All the time.
And you never stop worrying. And it's sort of like the saying goes: little children, little problems; big children, big problems. And the problems get bigger.
Mine are a little big now. They're younger than yours, but not quite young. But
and you worry about them, and you care for them so much, and you love them so much, and it's sort of they're always on your mind. And it's like, making sure you've got time for your family, despite all the stuff that's going on at work, is really, really important. And it's been a tough couple of years, I think, for everybody in all sorts of ways. And sort of, the family perspective has been an important one. I think, families getting back together again, you've seen it at close hand, how others are reacting and behaving in those difficult times. And stay close to your family.
Yeah, and they teach us so much, the kids, like seeing life through their eyes and seeing what they've got to contend with now. You've mentioned about kind of how the work environment has changed over the years with connectivity, and it's the same with the next generation, with how they engage with the world and what they're influenced by, and the stresses that brings of how they're judging themselves and other people's outsides. And it never leaves you alone. Just like before, you mentioned you could kind of clock off work on a Friday and have the weekend. Same with school and things of that nature, and universities now. It's kind of it's there with you all the time, mate. So it's a never changing world, isn't it? And how we adapt to this world is that's the challenge, isn't it? And having these things and processes in place to help us.
And I think there have been benefits of COVID in allowing people to sort of reassess and reset the way of working. And look where we've come to now, where sort of like working from home now is something that is regarded as, okay, we all acknowledge there is going to be a portion of the old-fashioned working week that will be working from home. Now, before COVID, we shouldn't forget, before COVID, that was like the exception, that you'd negotiate it with your manager and you might get a day. And it's, so I think that's been one of the benefits that it will give us. No one likes the commute into work. No one likes that, okay? But getting the balance right, so you've got time with your colleagues face to face, but then also giving that, time around sort of, avoiding the commute, working from home. It just gives a nicer balance, I think, into the working week, which is, as you read, Ocado, we're going through that right now. Yeah,
absolutely. Balance, key word. Okay, I said 10 minutes ago, I'm aware of the time, but, very quickly, there's a question here that I'd just love to finish on more often than not. So you're on your grateful mile. We're in January, and we're knee deep in getting these miles around the world, and you come across a genie lamp on your run. You're obviously outdoors. It's about 5:37 in the morning, and you find this genie lamp, and you've got 3 wishes. Anything come to mind with what them 3 wishes would be?
Well, okay. So number 1 would be you want your children to be healthy and happy. I mean, happiness is really, really important. If you're healthy and happy, then that's kind of like number 1. Number 2 wish, oh crikey, I'd love, off the top of my head, I'd love Leeds United to win the Premier League, which I don't think will happen for a while. Although we won it back in '92 when we
you won it more than Tottenham.
The last winners of the first, exactly right. Well, we didn't win the Premier League. We were the last winners of the old First Division. So, but that's probably quite trite saying that. But anyway, just off the top of my head. And what would be a third wish? I mean, oh goodness me, I can't, I can't.
Go for it.
Yeah, so I've met family. What else would I wish for? I'm gonna have to think about this one.
Email me. It's
I'll
fine.
email you. Yeah.
And then just to finish on a bit of gratitude, is there someone that comes to mind that either at Ocado, since you've been here, it's kind of that onboarding process, or family, anyone that you're grateful for that you just kind of want to, well, not say thank you to, but just anyone that comes to mind that
I think
you want to share a bit of gratitude
the
for?
three most important people: my mum and my dad. Hi,
Yeah.
mum and dad. If you wouldn't be watching this, but hello. My mum and dad have been fantastic. I mean, I could not wish for better parents, to be honest. I mean, totally supportive, totally encouraging, still pay massive amount of attention and interest in everything that we're doing, and with all their grandchildren as well. So my mum and dad just been amazing. And then my wife, I mean, Vicky, travelled around the world with me. Vicky had a great job. Well, she worked with me at Price Waterhouse, and super talented. I mean, much smarter than I am, actually.
Okay.
Some people say that's easy to do, but anyway, put that to one side. And effectively, again, going back in those days, maternity leave was a lot harder.
Yeah.
Being a professional person with children was a lot harder, and gave up her career to travel around the world with me from job to job. We went from South Africa to Pakistan to Bangladesh to Switzerland.
Wow.
And having children along the way, and for supporting me, and for a family environment that we all enjoy, and playing a brilliant role there, and always being there for me and supporting me in my work, which has been really important. I know it sounds dreadfully old-fashioned, and I know that's not always way from it, but for us it's been an important part of for me, and a real platform. So Vicky, again, if you're watching, thank you very much for everything you've done.
Well, listen, feeling supported and loved will never go out of fashion,
Yeah,
and
right.
and everyone needs somebody.
Yeah.
I suppose that's one of the takeaways from this conversation, that wherever we are, wherever we're looking to go, if we've got people by our side to uplift us and encourage us along the way and guide us, then we need to find them people, and they are out there. So if you feel like you haven't, there are opportunities, far and wide to go and identify these people,
Right.
So,
yeah.
well, thanks so much for your time. I've really enjoyed our chat.
Yeah,
Great
thank
way
you.
to start the
Yeah.
week. So, look forward to doing a few grateful miles with you.
Brilliant. Look forward to it.
Yeah, tell your
All right.
mates and let's get their miles done in January.
Definitely.
Great. Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Cheers,
Take
thanks. See
care.
ya.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Lovely.